We did encounter 2 of the probable 3 people who have been lost in the blue hole.
The ocean swallowed their lights. Then the truth surfaced, and it stunned the entire world. In 2018, billionaire Richard Branson, famed explorer Fabien Cousteau, and a team of scientists dove into Belize's legendary Great Blue Hole, armed with sonar, submersibles, and a mission: uncover ancient secrets sealed beneath 400 feet of water. But what they found wasn't just rock or reef. They found death, fossils, garbage, human remains, and something no one could explain. Were these clues to Earth's turbulent past, or signs of something still moving in the dark? This wasn't just a dive. It was a descent into time, mystery, and something disturbingly alive. What happened at the bottom left scientists shaken, and the world speechless. The descent begins. When the submersibles slipped beneath the crystal blue waters off the coast of Belize, the world watched in real time. But for the crew inside, Richard Branson, Fabien Cousteau, Erica Bergman, and a team of elite marine scientists, this was more than a technological feat or a media event. It was the beginning of a journey into one of the Earth's least understood natural formations. The Great Blue Hole had loomed as an alluring mystery since Jacques Cousteau first explored its shadowy depths in 1971. But back then, limited light and rudimentary equipment left too many questions unanswered. In 2018, this team returned, not to ask those same questions, but to answer them. The descent wasn't casual or improvised. It was a meticulously planned expedition combining cutting-edge marine engineering, high-definition cameras, and advanced sonar technology. Branson, known for his flamboyant adventurism, helped fund and amplify the mission. But he wasn't just there to watch. He was part of a broader campaign, Ocean Unite's 30 by 30 initiative to protect 30% of the world's oceans by 2030. For him, this dive was both personal and political. It was a rare opportunity to connect the thrill of deep-sea exploration with a critical global message. Our oceans are dying, and time is running out. The team piloted both Stingray 500 and Idabel submersibles, initiating the much-awaited prospect of diving in these capsules with the excitement of astronauts into strange new atmospheres. From the glorious coral gardens of the reef, teeming with all kinds of sea turtles, reef sharks, and neon fishes, the descent continued into a world in which life faded, then light, and later silence grew louder with every foot down. Brilliant turquoise began to shift as they sank deeper. First royal blue, then cold, dead gray. Eventually, everything became black. This is quite atmospheric, aside from being visual. The pressure increased, the temperature decreased, and so it also quieted their voices as they became visitors in a world where humans were not meant to be. Looking through the acrylic dome of the submersible felt almost like floating in space above the world. Sonar screens lit up and twinkled, starting to map out the cavernous walls. These walls were dark and invisible to the naked eye, revealing themselves only in such pulses of sound. This is not free-fall chaos, but a descent into mystery, with a structured geological formation and ancient collapse, holding buried history. The sonar gives a picture of the inside of the hole in mind-boggling, stunningly clear detail, a perfect circle about 1,000 feet across, over 400 feet deep. As it descended further, so the mantle unfolded as a mission of discovery to unravel. This was not just water, but passage through time. There lay a vertical immersion into the interior worlds of Earth, and soon the submarine would cross the point of no return. The layer no natural light nor life would penetrate, and beyond that invisible veil, a silent world untouched for thousands of years, and hiding a secret that no one expected to find. The cave that became an ocean. Long before the Caribbean Sea ever existed in its modern form, the site of the Blue Hole was high and dry. During the last ice age, global sea levels were hundreds of feet lower. What we now call the Great Blue Hole began as a vast underground limestone cave system, sculpted by the slow drip of mineral-rich water over tens of thousands of years. These drips left behind stalactites, massive mineral formations that grew silently in the shadows, some reaching over 40 feet long. This underground world remained untouched for millennia, but as the Earth warmed and the glaciers melted, oceans began to rise. Slowly, the sea swallowed the cave, and with that surge of water came catastrophe. The roof of the cave collapsed under its own weight, forming a perfectly symmetrical void that filled with water, and ultimately became the famous marine sinkhole we see today. It was an event so violent and transformative, it literally reshaped the geology of an entire section of the seafloor. The 2018 expedition's sonar technology was able to scan what human eyes never could. What it revealed was stunning. Layered along the interior walls of the hole were what scientists call terraces, distinct ledges marking where the sea level had paused, risen, and paused again throughout history. These terraces weren't just formations. They were fossilized shorelines, each one marking a chapter in Earth's climate history. One terrace sat at 69 feet deep, another at 161 feet, and a third at nearly 300 feet. Each correlated with a known period of sudden glacial melt and catastrophic sea level rise, events that reshaped continents and wiped out species. And then came one of the most shocking discoveries of the entire expedition. The stalactites inside the Blue Hole weren't hanging perfectly vertical, as expected. Some were tilted, with deviations of up to 12 degrees. That tilt, being so consistent, indicated that something other than geological processes was involved, something intimidating. The entire platform where the cave was situated had undergone some movement. Geologists now imagined that a tectonic jolt had tilted much of the ancient seabed upon which the cave was formed and therefore affected its foundation before collapse. Not merely water and erosion formed this place. Rather, it was the grinding, violent motions of the Earth's crust. For thousands of years, a slow yet unstoppable force was working silently to change the landscape. And now, with the sonar maps generated during this dive, scientists were able to confirm it. The Blue Hole was not only home to stunning marine beauty, it was a geological time capsule, a witness to a story of collapse, flooding, and seismic upheaval. What makes this all the more astonishing is the fact of its perfect preservation. The stalactites are still there, lying totally untouched in inviolable darkness. No divers could get to them before without destroying them. But now, with the precision of high-tech sonar, they were seen in all their eerie, stone-silent beauty. This was not only a mere exploration of the sea. This was reading pages from a stone-bound history book that had never been opened. And just when they thought the past couldn't surprise them any further, the crew would cross into a zone even stranger, where oxygen fades and life itself disappears. Life stops at 300 feet. As the submersibles crept past the 300-foot mark, the vibrant blues of the Caribbean gave way to an eerie, inky blackness. Here, sunlight could no longer reach. But it wasn't just the absence of light that signaled the team had entered a new world. It was the chemical curtain they passed through. A dense, toxic layer of hydrogen sulfide, known for its pungent odor and lethal effects, stretched across the entire sinkhole like a ghostly veil. And below it, nothing. No oxygen, no life, just silence and stillness. An anoxic realm locked off from the rest of the world for thousands of years. This layer of hydrogen sulfide marks a hard boundary between two vastly different ecosystems. Above it, coral thrives, fish swarm, and turtles glide gracefully. Below it, the environment becomes utterly alien. It is a realm where even bacteria struggle to survive and where the normal rules of decay and time cease to function. The submarine's lights pierced this black void to reveal something haunting. A graveyard. Hundreds, possibly thousands of shells littered the seabed in what the crew came to call the conch graveyard. The creatures had fallen into the hole from above, likely tumbling down the steep slopes in moments of panic or disorientation. Once they passed the hydrogen sulfide barrier, it was over. Deprived of oxygen, they suffocated. Some of their tracks were still visible in the sand, tiny claw marks, etched into the slope as the animals had struggled to climb back up. Each one was a frozen, final moment of desperation, preserved forever in the lifeless calm of the blue hole's bottom. But here, he has met with the end of not just ancient sea life. The team encountered another, perhaps more modern reminder of mortality: the corpse of two human divers. They had long been lost during past expeditions and were never recovered, their bodies resting peacefully in the silt. Below the layer of hydrogen sulfide, the water was eerily quiet. Devoid of any bacterial decay, one would say they had barely decomposed. Out of respect, the team left them untouched and informed the local authorities about their whereabouts. It was a haunting moment. It wasn't just a scientific expedition. It was also a descent into territories from which others had never returned. Among the other unexpected finds, human waste, a plastic Coke bottle, a still-functioning GoPro camera. What a bummer that. Here too came humanity's footprints.
Explore the bottom of the hole, they found a 2-liter Coke bottle and a lost GoPro.
The expedition began switching moods from wondrous to dismayed. If an unsealed, oxygen-free eternal tomb hasn't been spared, where on Earth is spared from pollution? The deep sea was not just mysterious. It was a living reflection of human negligence. But nothing was yet compared to what lay ahead. Down near the very deepest point of the blue hole, the sonar suddenly picked up something weird. Patterns in the sediment that don't belong. Not shell trails, not natural formations. They were perfectly shaped, crisscrossing circular paths. They weren't caused by the submersibles. They weren't by any known underwater currents either. They weren't consistent with the movements of any species known to survive in such a horrible environment. What made these tracks? What could possibly move in a world with no oxygen, no light, and crushing pressure? The mystery was about to deepen, and it would leave even the most seasoned explorers questioning what they thought was possible. The divers who never returned. Deep beneath the shimmering surface of Belize's Great Blue Hole lies more than just a geological wonder. It holds the stories of those who entered but never came back.
Deep in these areas that, when disturbed, kick up into huge clouds that would disorientate any diver, professional or otherwise.
As the 2018 expedition's submersible glided through the black void beneath the hydrogen sulfide layer, it illuminated not just conch shells and sediment, but something far more human and infinitely more sobering. Near the bottom, the crew's lights caught on shapes that stopped them cold. Two human bodies, preserved in the cold, oxygen-free waters, rested undisturbed. The remains were believed to be divers who had gone missing years earlier during previous private expeditions. In the decades since their disappearances, many theories have been offered: equipment failure, disorientation, running out of air. But now, their fate was clear. They had crossed a threshold from which there was no return. Below 300 feet, the blue hole changes, light vanishes, currents stop, and most critically, oxygen disappears. It's a realm that offers no forgiveness. Dive computers malfunction, visibility drops to 0 in seconds, and the hydrogen sulfide layer acts as a barrier, not only between light and darkness, but between life and death. The crew treated the discovery with reverence. There were no sensational reactions, no attempts to retrieve the bodies for spectacle. Instead, they quietly marked the location, informed the Belizean government, and agreed that the site would remain untouched. As Erica Bergman, the submersible pilot, later said, "It's very dark and peaceful down there. Just kind of let them stay." The words carried the weight of understanding, an explorer's respect for those who took the same risks and paid the ultimate price. The present indelible moment was waged between the bright hope that launched the expedition. The mission had until this time been scientific, historical, even hopeful. But now in this thundering silence is the ocean's floor, where the team is found facing the perilous sway between the commitment to discovery, no longer a faceless danger, it now bore a human face. Doubling multiple times in waters never to return, gave rise to the blue hole's mystery. They reminded us that while we strive to break the frontiers of knowledge about nature, these frontiers do strike back. They were neither thrill-seekers nor wild explorers, but a long lineage of divers who considered the unknown worth the risk. And now they have become part of the story that they had tried to uncover. Partially destroyed, the tools remained: tanks, fins, time-locked gauges. As the submarine passed, sonar recorded all and engraved on the 3D map being constructed their final resting place. The human tragedy will be remembered as part of the ongoing data about where mankind explores the Earth, not just as an incident, but as a human chapter in these explorations of her most mysterious places. Not every journey leads to the answering of questions. Some are ingrown. Others give rise to wounding questions. Still others lead to awe. These divers, at once, are a tale of caution and an homage, a permanent marker on a ground where time has stood still. But just as the crew began to turn their focus back to the geological findings, the ocean had one more mystery to offer, one that would defy science, challenge logic, and shake the foundation of what we believe about life in the deepest, darkest corners of our world. The tracks that shouldn't exist. Just when the crew thought they had seen the most haunting secrets the Great Blue Hole had to offer, their instruments picked up something no one could explain. It wasn't a formation, a body, or a long-lost relic. It was something far stranger, something that shouldn't have been there at all. As the submersible swept the seafloor with high-resolution sonar, a pattern began to appear. At first, it looked like a series of shallow ridges or unusual sediment lines. But as the submarine circled back for confirmation, the reality became clear. These weren't natural grooves. They were tracks, distinct, repetitive, purposeful, crisscrossing one another in looping arcs and circular motions, etched into the soft bottom of the blue hole. These tracks weren't like the last-ditch trails left by the dying conch seen earlier. They weren't the chaotic impact marks of falling debris. They formed deliberate paths, as if something had moved with control and direction across the sediment at a depth where no known life could survive, let alone travel. The team quickly ruled out the obvious. The submersibles themselves hadn't made the marks. They were far too distant, and their propulsion systems didn't match the shapes. There were no visible signs of mechanical disturbance. Ocean currents couldn't have created them, certainly not in that environment where water barely moved. And no known marine creature, not even extremophiles, was capable of leaving behind trails like these. The scientists on board fell into silence. These tracks suggested motion, intent, something active, yet invisible in the impenetrable darkness. Images from the sonar revealed even more unsettling details. Some tracks overlapped each other in patterns resembling figure eights and spirals, as though the object, whatever it was, had returned to the same location multiple times. Others led out of the field of view, continuing beyond what the sonar could capture. The formations had sharp, well-defined edges, indicating they were fresh, not ancient imprints from a different epoch. Speculation spread quickly. Could it be one previously unknown life form capable of living within tremendous pressures and an oxygen-free setting of the hydrogen sulfide layer? Some researchers speculated the presence of chemosynthetic extremophiles, organisms that do not need oxygen, but metabolize chemicals like hydrogen sulfide. But nothing in the scientific literature matched what the team had found. Never had a previously known organism large enough to make those tracks been documented in that environment. Others speculated this might be pointing to some unusual geological processes, some reaction between temperature, minerals, and sediment unknown to us that caused the bizarrely tangible shifting of the sediment on the sea floor. That was another stretch. The shapes were too well organized, far too purposeful. Nature has its tricks, but rarely with this kind of symmetry. All of them venture forth into the theoretical tomorrow. It would be a hypothetical consideration that there was something else, something man-made, that had been there earlier. Some speculated on couching the argument. Perhaps it had been a secret assignment that might not even have been publicized, that had gone down there and left behind traces that no one was ever meant to see. There were no records, no debris, no explanation. The information was archived and released. The film was broadcast. And now the world went berserk over it. Experts argued. Threads on Reddit were on fire. Headlines sprouted in various news organizations between awe and fear. Did scientists discover movement in a dead zone? Unknown forces at the bottom of the blue hole? What's making tracks where nothing should be? The crew, seasoned as they were, admitted they had no answers. It was one of the few times in the history of deep-sea exploration when the instruments gave clear results, but the conclusions remained elusive. These tracks defy the very assumption that we understand what can be done in the oceans of the Earth. For now, they remain an interrogative in an otherwise mapped descent, a mark that, for all our advanced technology, there are still places where mystery wins. And as they prepared to leave the depths, with hard drives full of data and minds full of wonder, the team realized there was one last piece of the puzzle they hadn't examined. The most haunting image of all, the final photos captured before anyone had entered the hole. A world watching in real time. This wasn't just an expedition for the history books. It was a broadcasted, global event, one where the world's collective breath was held as a submersible slipped below the ocean's surface and into the mouth of Earth's most enigmatic abyss. For the first time ever, the mysteries of the Great Blue Hole were unfolding live in real time on millions of screens.
A diver's greatest dream, and also their worst nightmare, all rolled into one: the Great Blue Hole.
Thanks to the efforts of the Discovery Channel, National Geographic, and the private teams involved, the dive into the Blue Hole was streamed as a high-definition live event. It was a monumental technical undertaking, relaying video from hundreds of feet below the surface through corrosive hydrogen sulfide layers and crushing pressure, all while maintaining the clarity and pace of a live broadcast. Every flicker of the sonar, every gasp from the crew, every eerie revelation on the ocean floor was seen by an audience spanning continents. People tuned in from classrooms, living rooms, smartphones, and YouTube feeds, united by a sense of shared anticipation. They weren't just watching, they were there, inside the domed submersibles with the explorers, experiencing the quiet horror of the conch graveyard and the mysterious peace of the sunken divers. The camera lens became a communal eye, drawing the world deeper into a place that had never before been fully seen. It wasn't just science on display, it was emotion, shock, curiosity, grief, awe. Viewers posted reactions in real time, from marine biologists identifying stony features to teenagers on TikTok marveling at the creepy glowing mist as the sub broke through the hydrogen sulfide layer. Hashtags like #BlueHoleDive and #SonarMystery began trending. What started as a niche scientific mission became a full-fledged cultural event, and that was no accident. Sir Richard Branson and the expedition team understood that part of saving the oceans meant getting people to care about them. The live stream wasn't just about the dive. It was a massive awareness campaign, cleverly disguised as entertainment. Every shot of plastic waste at 300 feet deep, every sonar scan of vanished coral ledges was a visual indictment of human impact on the ocean. It turned environmental advocacy into something visceral, immediate, impossible to ignore. Mid-dive, no speeches or lectures were made. They were not necessary because the images spoke volumes about what was happening. A single Coca-Cola bottle in ancient sediment beside stalactites, long in existence, would have sufficed. The whole world could have guessed. That meant humans had footprints even in the unreachable. Then came the moment that shocked everyone. The sonar blip, the circular tracks. As the patterns gradually appeared on the screen, the chat on the stream exploded. Could it be a glitch? Some bizarre natural phenomenon? Or something completely different? Real-time speculation of paranormal forums, UFO subreddits, and marine science communities went about concocting theories and taking screenshots. It was simply unlike anything anyone had seen previously, and there was no definitive explanation for it. It was one of those moments that transcended the screen. Everyone watching was making history, witnessing the unexplained together. For just a short while, even the crew seemed mesmerized by the moment. The cold professionalism gave way to quiet awe as the sub-pilots exchanged understated waves of disbelief with each other. And all could see it. That transparency, that rawness, is what makes it memorable. This was not a mere spectacle for the sake of spectacle. It instead created a global emotional investment by casting millions of eyes on one of the most endangered marine ecosystems on the planet. It raised questions about climate, pollution, and the boundaries of exploration that deserved answers long after the live stream was over. Because of this broadcast, the writing of curriculum units would change among schools and spike conservation donations, while a piercing question would be thrown at policymakers. What other undiscovered and unprotected treasure is lurking at the bottom of the ocean? If this is what is hiding in one sinkhole, what else? But before the crew returned to the surface, they encountered one final twist, something buried in data, not stone, a mystery that would continue long after the cameras turned off. From exploration to action. The descent into the Great Blue Hole wasn't just a deep-sea adventure.
Blue holes are often hundreds of feet deep, which gives them that deep blue color in contrast to the shallower water around them.
It was a turning point. What began as a scientific mission evolved into something far more urgent and profound, a global call to action. The discoveries made at the bottom of this underwater chasm shook viewers and experts alike. But it was what happened after the dive that truly changed the game. From the moment the submarines resurfaced, the expedition leaders knew they had unearthed more than stalactites and sonar anomalies. They had unearthed a story, a narrative that revealed not only Earth's ancient past, but the very real threats facing its future. Richard Branson, never one to miss an opportunity for advocacy, took the findings straight from the ocean floor to the political arena. Upon returning to Belize, Branson didn't just share his awe, he initiated a meeting with Prime Minister Dean Barrow. The agenda was direct and urgent: protect Belize's marine ecosystems before more damage is done. Backed by the power of the expedition's data, Branson and his team proposed expanding the country's marine protected areas and called for an outright ban on gill nets, the infamous walls of death that indiscriminately trap everything in their path: fish, dolphins, turtles, even manatees. It was a strategic move. With the expedition's footage and sonar maps now making headlines around the world, the timing was perfect. Belize was under a spotlight, and saying yes to stronger conservation laws meant more than just good policy. It meant international praise, increased ecotourism, and a legacy of environmental leadership. And it worked. The Prime Minister voiced strong support, hinting that new protections were imminent. For the scientists and explorers involved, this moment was just as meaningful as any discovery on the ocean floor. The blue hole had done more than whisper secrets from the past. It had shouted a warning, and the world was starting to listen. But the momentum didn't stop at Belize's shores. Educational institutions seized on the expedition's findings. Schools developed lesson plans around the sonar data. Universities added the 3D maps to marine geology courses. Conservation nonprofits began using the footage in fundraising campaigns. Branson's Ocean Unite initiative leveraged the dive to amplify the 30-30 campaign, pushing for 30% of Earth's oceans to be protected by 2030. And even for society, the dive was an opening for everyone to understand ocean advocacy. Viewers who previously lacked knowledge of the blue hole are now petitioning, donating to reef preservation programs, or sharing on their social media postings clips of the eerie conch graveyard. Most disturbing for the sight of plastic trash at 300 feet, beneath ancient stone formations and with the remains of lost divers themselves, was the quiet redundancy. It was proof, visually and indisputably, that human negligence had reached even its most distant and mysterious corners on this Earth. And perhaps most significantly, this dive reframed for the 21st century what exploration means. It showed that exploration is no longer about placing clefts or treasure hunting. It is about study or information gathering, story sharing, and inspiring to action globally. It is about buying responsibility with fascination. That broadcast will also connect with millions of people watching, learning, and feeling connected to the deep sea in ways that textbooks and documentaries could never really achieve. They would see the ocean as more than just something for the camera, but more as something to feel. That investment is what will drive change. The group of the expedition, with Erica Bergman and Fabien Cousteau, was not claiming to have all the answers. They came up with a few more questions than they went down with, especially after finding those former unexplained tracks at the bottom of the hole. Yet, they knew this. The ocean is very much secretive, and if we do not act now, those secrets could get lost even before we get a chance to uncover them. The Great Blue Hole was explored, but the words were not just scientific. They were also moral. Save what is left, explore what we can, and never, ever take the silence of the sea as a sign that all is right. And just like that, what was supposed to be a dive into the depths turned out to be a force above the surface, an unexpected movement, and a very new one at that. But the ripple effects of the dive extended much beyond the realms of science, politics, and education. They created a cultural shift. Painters, poets, and filmmakers all began incorporating the haunting imagery and urgent message of the blue hole into their creative endeavors. The underwater ballet was staged in memory of the conch graveyard. A graphic novel rewrote the dive as an allegory of human hubris and resilience. Coastal indigenous communities began to weave the results of the dive into their traditional ecological knowledge, marrying mythic wisdom and modern-day science to speak for ocean stewardship. Fashion designers took note and created collections lined with the ethereal blues of the blue hole and the tragic beauty of its deepest layers, donating proceeds for marine conservation. The expedition consequently gave birth to an unruly story. The ocean was not only studied or saved, it was imagined as a living, breathing member of our global identity. What do you think made those mysterious tracks at the bottom of the Great Blue Hole? Could it be a new life form, or something we haven't imagined? Drop your theories in the comments. And if this dive blew your mind, hit that like button, subscribe, and dive into our next deep sea mystery by clicking the next video on your screen. Because even in the darkest places on Earth, there are stories still waiting to be told.